And before this video begins, I'd just like to give a special thank you to my Asbantium level patron, Fallon Cortez. Thank you for supporting the channel. The Doctor Who Christmas special. One of the most important and sanctified parts of the holiday season. After all, it wouldn't be Christmas without Doctor Who. And after a long run without one, last year's Church on Ruby Road brought that important tradition back, albeit with a bit of a whimper thanks to the benefit of hindsight. But this year, we had Stephen Moffat back in the kitchen, ready to cook up the first Christmas special not written by the current showrunner. Fun bit of trivia for you. And the result is Joy to the World, or Worlds if you're Disney. A wild adventure set inside a sci-fi time hotel promising Christmas everywhere, all at once. Get it? It's like that one movie. Moffat is known for some of the best Doctor Who stories of all time, especially when it comes to Christmas. He gave us A Christmas Carol, Last Christmas, Twice Upon a Time, some truly top-shelf seasonal Doctor Who, but did he manage to pull it off again? Or does Joy to the World fail to bring joy to anyone? Well, as always, that's what I'm here to find out. So grab a ham and cheese toastie and violate your mouth with a pumpkin latte, because it's time to take a deep dive into Joy to the World. There's no denying Doctor Who is in a weird spot right now. After the end of the Chibnall era, there was a big sense of excitement and a real fervour for the return of Russell T Davies. And sure, the 60th anniversary was received well, a promising return to form for the show. But then came the so-called Season 1, which ended in a whimper, and not the fun kind. The finale was received overwhelmingly badly, and it kind of led to a strange atmosphere around the show for the rest of the year. People weren't really talking about Doctor Who. There wasn't some big feeling of hype for the Christmas special. It just kind of felt empty. It also doesn't help that we have no confirmation that Season 3 is even happening, so the very future of the show as we currently know it is in doubt. And all of that is a very precarious position for Doctor Who to be in going into a special like this, with just a real lack of excitement or interest. The tone and discussions around the show this Christmas couldn't be any more different to those of last year, so the episode was really up against it, especially since Moffat had already had to kind of step in at the last minute to take over from Davis, who was originally supposed to write the special, as is tradition for the showrunner. And yeah, this didn't do anything to beat the accusations of Doctor Who being washed. Okay, so Joy to the World gets off to a pretty decent, promising start, with a nice and snappy time and globe-trotting feeling as the Doctor goes through all these different places. Although, I will say, I don't care how well the curtains block out the light, you shouldn't have any lights on in the Blitz. Jokes aside, it instantly sets that tone of Christmas everywhere all at once. It's very quick and fast-paced, just well enough to give you what you need. Although, personally, I find it very unrealistic that Joy manages to get a hotel room in London on Christmas Eve. I mean, come on, that shouldn't even be possible even in Doctor Who's magic land. I can handle moving statues, I can handle time machines bigger on the inside and regeneration, but affordable hotel vacancies on Christmas Eve in London, good luck with that. And of course, it's in this Sandringham hotel that our one-off companion Joy finds herself pulled into the wild misadventures of the Doctor, and a Silurian, who is there for no reason. But yes, this episode is called Joy to the World, and there was a big push about the casting of Nicola Coughlan? No, Coughlan.
It's me, Nicola Coughlan.
And there was a big push about the casting of Nicola Coughlan from Derry Girls and Bridgerton. I guess this was their attempt at replicating Catherine Tate in Runaway Bride. So after such heavy promotion of her presence and the title literally being named after Joy, how does she do? Not well. Yeah, having not seen Nicola in anything before, I didn't really come in with any expectations. So I don't know if it was the writing or the acting, but Joy as a character falls completely flat for me. Right from the start, she's introduced with some very cringe-inducing comedic lines, especially when she starts talking to a fly. Get it? Because she's so quirky. It's very painful to watch in my personal opinion, especially from the same writer that brought us actual compelling and enjoyably airy or offbeat characters like Sally Sparrow, Amy Pond, and Clara Oswald. Joy pales in comparison to any of them. She doesn't have much of a character or a personality, especially because for the majority of the episode she's possessed by a briefcase, so she she really doesn't feel very important or notable, and the episode even completely dumps her for a long stretch of time, which only hurts Joy's presence as a character and a one-off companion. But worst of all, I just don't think she has any real chemistry with Ncuti Gatwa. Their characters' energies are far too different, and it prevents any kind of natural dynamic from forming. I do want to like Joy as a character, but it's hard to point to any real character moments or impactful contributions to the episode, especially when you compare her to other one-off companions like Adelaide Brooke, for example. Instead, Joy is just kind of there. She's an incredibly weak and borderline pointless character. Okay, yes, I know I'm being very negative, Harbo, but to get back to some more positive things, let's talk about the Time Hotel, which is a hotel far in our future that can magically connect to doors throughout history like Monsters Inc. or something. It's a really great idea inspired by the mysterious doors we always seem to find in hotels. You know, if you've ever been to a hotel, you know about that door, which never opens and you just assume is some kind of cupboard or something. It's all very strange. And that's very typical of Moffat, taking something so mundane and normal from our real world only to turn it into something very mysterious and sci-fi. Indeed, the Time Hotel looks fantastic inside and out. Even future London itself looks great. I wish we could spend more time there. And you know, maybe even have a companion from there, instead of, I don't know, another contemporary companion. Thanks, Russell. Oh, and yeah, speaking of, who needs a Sea Devil spin-off when you can just have a Time Hotel spin-off? Just saying. But yeah, the concept of the Time Hotel is peak sci-fi, even if a little too absurd at points. I like how each door is themed to the era it comes from, so you know, you just have a giant rock in a wall as a door. It's very much the kind of concept you would see in a Doctor Who book or Big Finish story, so it's nice to see it on screen like this. I mean, hell, even earlier this year I covered The Tribulations of Thaddeus Nook, where a con man used a dodgy time machine to run historical tours, and I got those same kind of vibes here, with all these background characters being implied to enter into these historical periods as tourists trying to blend in. I also just think that even the lobby itself looks excellent. It's very fancy and extravagant, doing a good job bringing a Christmas vibe to the episode, even if the majority of the episode does fall flat with that. And whilst the Doctor stops off at the hotel for a cup of morning brown, he spots a very conspicuous man carrying a suspicious briefcase. So naturally, he can't resist a mystery. I like how he instinctively changes out of his Arthur Dent-esque dressing gown setup without even realising why, although I don't like how he narrates every step of the way. Like, come on, we can see what's going on here. Oh, and the Doctor enlists hotel employee, You're Dead 1, who basically immediately gets killed. Oops. Trev isn't that great, he's just kind of there, and I think his comedic lines are a bit desperate, although I do like this one near the end.
And renewed hope for the future. However, I'm dead.
That's a legitimately good one. Anyway, it's cool how this briefcase changes hands, literally, by latching onto people with more and more authority as a way to ladder up and get more access to the hotel. Although not that it actually needs it, considering it still gets where it needs to even with Joy, who's just a guest of a different hotel. I find it really creepy how the briefcase overrides its victims and turns them into these slave drones programmed to simply pass the briefcase onto the next, immediately killing the previous occupant without them really getting a chance to process what just happened. There's definitely some great level of body horror there, as the characters lose their independence and ability to control their own bodies. And all these briefcase shenanigans also give us another good bit of comedy as Joy becomes the latest carrier with a deadly countdown, only for said countdown to pop back up again asking for a passcode. It's some solid sci-fi comedy, the same kind of writing Douglas Adams employed so well, making things like death a minor inconvenience or a boring company transaction. It's fun. And in a classic bootstrap paradox, the Doctor is able to solve this passcode conundrum thanks to himself. Much like Time Crash all the way back in 2007, where the 10th Doctor only knew how to fix the TARDIS because the 5th Doctor saw him do it. Or like in The Doctor Falls, where Missy always knew to carry a spare dematerialization circuit after being the Sim Master and having herself intimidate him into it, so they could get back to that moment intact. It's a lot like Before the Flood in that regard, where there's no clear explanation of how the Doctor learned the passcode. That knowledge is simply the same as the Beethoven's 5th hypothetical from that earlier episode. It's all very typical Moffat stuff. He loves a good bootstrap. And it also leads to the best part of this episode, as we now have to follow the Doctor going going the long way round and having to stay at the Sandringham Hotel for a whole year until he can get back to the Time Hotel and complete that paradox to solve the code. I really love this sequence as the Doctor reluctantly starts working at the hotel to stay there, taking odd jobs and tackling them in a very Doctor-like way. It's a really beautiful series of scenes as he lives a normal life. Something we've seen glimpses before in Power of Three or Time of the Doctor, but this time it feels very different and it creates a powerful sense of emotion for this story. Obviously we have the goofy 11th Doctor-esque scenes of him with gadgets and failing social cues, showing him struggling to blend into a normal setting. You know, that's the kind of stuff we expect from such a narrative. But it's also a really strong character journey for the Doctor, especially because of his friendship with the greatest character of the 15th Doctor era so far, Anita. Oh, Anita. We love Anita here. She's a surprising star of the episode, beginning events as a normal, unimpressed hotel concierge who isn't paid enough to ask questions about lizard men or time travel. And then she's thrown into spending all this time with the Doctor when he comes back to the hotel and just casually says, "Oh yeah, Joy's gone by the way." It gives us a great look at how they grow closer over the course of this year, because they have nobody else. Anita feels so natural and human, a dramatically better written character than Joy, despite the latter being the main character and namesake of the episode. Gower and Steph DeWhaley have fantastic chemistry, and I honestly wouldn't have minded if Anita became the next companion, because their story in this episode is so touching and powerful. We see this whole relationship grow from acquaintances to best friends, even having chair nights once a week where they just hang out in every hotel's cuck chairs. And it's weird how that suddenly becomes a wholesome thing after it was such a meme in the last year or so. And of course, Auld Lang Syne becomes their big thing. Anita really brings out the deeper, established nuances of the modern Doctors, that vulnerability and longing for a sense of connection. It's no surprise that they get on so well. It's like Moffat accidentally started writing a great episode here, basically making the Doctor the one who waited instead of the companion like Amy. So it's a good subversion, a good way to give the Doctor a home and somewhere to care about, all in this brief montage where there's no aliens to deal with. And I love how the Doctor tries to sneak away, like he did in the Lodger or Closing Time, because he's scared of goodbyes. The scene of the Doctor and Anita saying goodbye is by far the standout moment of this whole episode. A really touching goodbye between two very close friends. It's also incredibly obvious that Anita fell for the Doctor but never acted on it, and the moment is acted perfectly. I'm glad it wasn't some big dramatic emotional scene of him having to reject her. It's instead done very subtly and played well. Honestly, 15 saying goodbye to Anita feels like the departure of a proper companion. That's how brilliantly she's characterized in this episode. Hell, in my opinion, it's actually a better farewell than the actual companion goodbye we just had in season 1. So, you know, that's not really a good look for how Ruby was written, is it? Anyway, enough about that brief sliver of this episode actually being pretty keynote. Let's go back to Joy, who finally does get a bit of characterization as the Doctor berates her in order to overpower the briefcase and free her. It's a moment very much akin to the 7th Doctor in The Curse of Fenric, or the 11th Doctor in The God Complex, which was also in a hotel, go figure, manipulating their companion for their own good, even if it hurts them. I think Ncuti Gatwa pulls off this moment really effectively. There's some great acting, and the delivery reminds me a lot of the 9th Doctor, so it's a really strong scene as he drives her further and further towards snapping by highlighting her insecurities and fake happiness. It's also a scene that introduces her sympathetic backstory of still grieving for her mother, who passed away on Christmas in 2020. And that's a concept very reminiscent of The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe, which had that great line from Maggie about Christmas always being the thing that took her children's father away. And we see that same sentimentality with Joy, as we glimpse the vulnerability underneath her overly cheery personality, because Christmas is a constant reminder of what she lost and how she feels like she failed as a daughter because those lockdowns prevented her from seeing her mother the day she died. Oh, and by the way, she died in the same hospital from Smith & Jones. Nice Easter egg there. But yes, this scene gives Joy some much needed motivation and a sense of character, peeling away these layers for a more brutally honest look at her. Although considering the ending of the story, it's kind of like he talked her into killing herself, which isn't a good look. Regardless, now that Joy has been freed from the grasp of that briefcase, we find out what this is all about. It's Villain Guard trying to create a star as a weapon, or an energy source, or something. It's all very vague, but it's Moffat's favourite weapons company returning once again, having been referenced in his first Doctor Who episode and then appearing in his last 3. I guess he's really proud of coming up with that one. It's not a bad idea to use the company again, especially because it does a good job of world building and creating consistency. Although by this point it does feel a little bit derivative, especially because this episode is concerningly similar to Boom just a few episodes earlier. We even have the AI interface rebelling against the system to help the Doctor save the day. You know, exactly the same resolution Boom also had. However, it is a pretty novel idea to use the Time Hotel to leave the starseed in one place and pick it up again 65 million years later when it's done cooking. It's a fun use of time travel as a concept. Even the Doctor himself has done stuff like that before. And eventually it turns out that yes, the briefcase was eaten by a dinosaur, therefore pooped out, and then became the focus of this shrine thing, which the Doctor has to open by revisiting some of those characters from the beginning of the episode. It's a clever way of bringing things full circle and giving him the tools to succeed, whilst also taking advantage of the Time Hotel itself. I have to say, you love to see it. But right when it seems like the Doctor might save the day, you know, because the starseed is yet another doomsday scenario for the show, they can't just have a normal episode for once, it combines with Joy and makes her levitate while giving a big monologue. It doesn't look very good, honestly. It turns out that the starseed somehow managed to rebel against Villengard or something, leading to a very desperately saccharine scene as Joy cycles through the other carriers of the briefcase as if you actually care about any of them. Like, hey look, it's Mr. Bartender Man. Isn't it great how he managed to have a happy ending? It's just not effective when it's characters you don't know really or care about at all. And then Joy pings off into space to allow the starseed to bloom in peace and safety. However, like I mentioned, this ending is kind of weird. Joy has this low self-esteem and these insecurities that she covers up. The Doctor makes it worse by accident. She realizes how insecure and lonely she is, so she kills herself. Basically. It's not like one of those typical sci-fi narratives where she's always had some weird sense of not belonging and wanting to get away or wanting to do something good. No, she just basically takes herself out, and that's super weird and bleak for Christmas, especially because they try and make it like this really happy thing. It's just such a strange ending. Oh, and then Joy becomes the iconic Christmas star from the Nativity, because I'm sure that's going to get a completely normal reaction. Hey, you know, at least they didn't have the inn as part of the Time Hotel. Well, they did, but at least it was just a throwaway line. Although, if anything, I think they should have gone all in on it. You know, if you're going to piss people off, just go for it. Because the episode already just went straight for the politician's throat with that angry bit about the parties and lockdowns. You know, just say that the Doctor created Jesus or something. Who cares? At least it'll actually make people pay attention to Doctor Who in 2024. In what's basically a rip-off of The Runaway Bride, Joy tells the Doctor he needs a friend. Which is funny because he basically just kicked Ruby out, as if she couldn't live her normal life with her newfound mum, whilst also going for the occasional trip in the TARDIS, like so many other companions have. I'm starting to think the Doctor actually just really doesn't like Ruby, and took the first chance he could to get rid of her. But oh no, we get a random cutaway to Ruby to remind you she still exists and is coming back like Martha did. Just, you know, without it feeling as interesting. I find it weird that despite the similarities to the Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe, he doesn't even call her or drop in for Christmas like he did with the Ponds when he saw the importance of not being alone for Christmas. For once, it actually would have been good to steal an existing plot point. But instead, we get an even more saccharine montage as all the characters look up into the new star and find themselves inspired. Get it? Because joy. Joy is bringing joy to the world.
We got one! We got one, ladies and gentlemen!
Yes, it's incredibly on the nose. The whole ending feels so hollow. It's just a bunch of monologuing, and then a character we don't care about sacrifices herself to be with her dead mum or something. I know Doctor Who loves death at Christmas, but they kind of reached for this one. But hey, at least we get a nice moment of Anita being offered a job at the Time Hotel, completing her character arc by getting a much earned, deserved promotion at a better hotel than the one she started at. It's a good emotional climax paying off her and the Doctor's friendship. Although it is a bit weird that he doesn't even offer a trip in the TARDIS after all of that and everything they went through. It's a bit rude. I mean, he could have at least called her to say hi. Stephen Moffat is known for his brilliant Doctor Who Christmas specials, but unfortunately, this is one of, if not the weakest from his repertoire, and that includes The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe, so it's saying a lot. Joy to the World is just a weird episode. It's like two different narratives crammed together, with a year-long friendship with Anita by far the best, most standout part of the episode, whilst Joy and the Starseed stuff feels like a very bland and forgettable plot. The Time Hotel is a fantastic idea and setting. It would have been great to have the Doctor solving some kind of murder mystery in the hotel or something, rather than another big apocalyptic doomsday storyline. I just think Doctor Who has lost its source a bit. It's so far from the quality it used to be. And that's not even nostalgia speaking. I recently went back and reviewed Series 10, and all those episodes completely clear this one. Well, I say always, not Eaters of Light. That's unforgivably bad. Much like most of the 15th Doctor's era so far, it just feels like Joy to the World is missing something. It's just lacking and a bit unfulfilling, especially as a big special. It's by no means terrible, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of stuff to like about it. From the long way round sequence to the Time Hotel itself. It's not terrible, it's just sadly, aggressively mediocre. Which really pains me to say because I always go into episodes wanting to like them. But recently with Doctor Who, I've just found myself very disappointed. I expected nothing and I was still let down. Therefore, I would give Joy to the World a D grade. I just didn't like it. And the only rewatch value for me is from the 20th minute to the 30th minute. That's basically all I get out of it. It's just bland. Not the best way to end the year, but hey ho, it's been not a great year anyway. I hope you at least enjoyed Joy to the World. I hope you had a good Christmas. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Happy New Year. And I'd just like to give a special thank you to my Asbantium level patron, Fallon Cortez, my Platinum level patron, Matthew Burns, and my Gold level patrons, Chris Douglas and Daniel Shillito. Thank you so much for your support.